If there's a movie, he's gonna rate it. He's gonna talk to his friends and they'll debate it. He's gonna try his best to not be a hater. His name is Billy the Movie Grader.
Hello, and welcome back to the Movie Grader and Friends podcast. I am Billy, the Movie Grader, and in this episode, I'm joined by my friend Adam. Say hello, Adam.
Hey, how's it going?
In this episode, we will be discussing and grading Blinded by the Light, a story that's close to our hearts that's based on an inspiring, true story highlighting the influence The Boss had throughout the world, even in some of its darkest times. We will also talk about what Bruce means to us as lifelong fans and some of our favorite memories regarding his music. Thanks to Wikipedia, Blinded by the Light is directed by Gurinder Chadha, who is famously known for spearheading the production of the 2002 box office hit Bend It Like Beckham. Debuting at the Sundance Film Festival back in January, Blinded by the Light hit UK and European theaters on August 9th and was released for US audiences the following week on the 16th. Starring Vivek Kalra as Javed Khan, we follow his journey discovering the boss's music and himself while coming of age within his Pakistani Muslim immigrant family based within the British suburb of Luton, Bedfordshire. Since Blinded by the Light took place in 1987, and I was only 4 at the time, I do not remember much, but the movie did nail that 80s nostalgia. I was too caught up in watching Thundercats, The Smurfs, and Transformers to pay attention to the events of the time, but Adam, you're a bit of a history buff.
There was a lot going on. I mean, it was like the penultimate chapters in the Cold War. You had Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan being like these arbiters of democracy and freedom and conservatism. But there was also a huge conservative movement that was going around in London and also in America, but in England. And one of the points that the movie touches upon, because like you said, it was an immigrant family, a Pakistani Muslim immigrant family. There was a huge nationalist movement that really, brought this a real shitty light on
The NF.
Yeah, the NF, the National Front, a fascist group. Yeah, total fascist, doing the Nazi salutes, wearing swastikas boldly and proudly. So it touched about that in the 80s and the rampant, discrimination that a lot of these Pakistani families felt. But also, I love the commentary on how it kind of made fun of some of the fads and themes in the 80s, especially the flock of seagulls haircuts that were just running rampant around. You had Tom and Baratheon with flipped out hair saying, going, "Sins of the future, man." Like,
Sins of the future.
that was what he was investing his time in. But, as they did joke about, too, about Bruce's music, is that, that's music your dad listens to, because he'd been around since, like, the late 60s, early 70s onward. I mean, he's still around. Let's not lie. Plus, it also, highlighted one of the most essential items that anyone, born in the 80s or 90s.
The Walkman.
Yeah, that was the most essential item anyone needed in order to play eventually mix CD when they upgraded the technology. But this one had the classic cassette.
This film really resonated with me because of how Javed Khan discovered Springsteen thanks to a newfound friend named Roops, a Sikh played by Aaron Pagura. I really enjoyed this scene where Roops slids Javed, the Born in the USA, and Darkness on the Edge of Town cassettes, really introducing Javed to the boss. What do you think, Adam?
I mean, it's classic. I mean, Born in the USA was my first album as well, so, it kind of hit home to me. And I think you love Darkness on the Edge of Town. I've heard you play that song a million times, so.
Love it.
Yeah.
But like our first Bruce albums, like Adam previously said, his was Born in the USA, and mine was Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band live in New York City, an album of the 1999 to 2000 reunion tour, which is actually a special on HBO. That's where I fell in love with the boss, for real.
Yeah, mine. I got to know very intimately on road trips with the Mammoth. The Bruce would be a common staple of the car ride. That, Boston, Kansas, and Cream. Ironically enough, just a lot of 70s, a lot of just classic rock. I got indoctrinated pretty early.
The boss is essential for any road trip, any trip, no matter what.
I'm not gonna argue with that.
As some of our key scenes and favorite moments that we enjoyed, Well, mine in particular was the way they did the visual lyric sequences during the initial discovery of Bruce's songs. I liked how they had the words or lyrics flash upon the screen whenever the music was crazily played over a loud sound system in the movie theater.
And him dancing around in the neighborhood like a maniac. It was kind of like how we were as kids a little bit.
Yeah, it was kind of like dancing as if nobody's watching.
Exactly.
Really getting into the music, as anybody should. It's the boss. One of the things that was surprising to me about the film was the many musical numbers that were dispersed throughout the film. Being that Thunder Road is one of my favorite songs by Bruce, of course, the Thunder Road's musical number was my favorite throughout the movie.
I mean, it was they had a lot of choreography to it. I mean, they even mimicked some of the 80s fads. They had the Breakfast Club dance, doing like the sidestep at the time as they're we are na, or whatever. It was a great sequence.
It was so fun. I liked it. Moving on, and actually in the very beginning of the movie, because Javed and his best friend Matt share a birthday, Matt receives a journal, which he then passes on to Javed to kickstart Javed's passion for writing. And Bruce just helped him find his voice.
And we get to later see Matt be played by Dean Charles Chapman, who, for those of you who don't know, is Tommen Baratheon. So we got to see Tommen with Flock of Seagulls hair trying to be a synth pop star. It was I kind of laughed my ass off at that one, I'm not going to lie.
It was funny. Another thing, too, but the movie is filled with lyrics, and one song more prominently than the others. Adam, care to
Promised
fill in?
Land. Oh my God, it's funny because I was honestly expecting it. The movie's called Blinded by the Light. He's got a song called Blinded by the Light. I heard maybe 20-30 seconds of that song throughout the whole movie, and I heard Promised Land at least like 20 times. Not complaining or anything, I just thought it was ironic that was the more featured song, but I mean, it clearly, I guess it clearly shows, what the director's favorite song is, because if it was me, yeah, I would have chosen a couple different ones, but obviously we're biased as fans.
Yeah. And from the Promised Land, some of the lyrics go as follows. Sometimes I feel so weak, I just want to explode. Explode and tear this whole town apart. Take a knife and cut this pain from my heart. Adam, how does that relate to the movie?
I mean, it's a transformative story about, this kid who's struggling in a society where he starts seeing parts of it really, truly reject him. Spitting in his face, slurs left and right, graffiti, and defacement of property, to put it politely.
Yeah.
This guy was in turmoil, and he found this blue collar, hardworking, guy from Jersey to put an inspiration to his voice.
If you're familiar with Bruce's work, he mainly writes for the blue-collar working-class people, and his songs really reflect that.
I mean, his work ethic is just reflected in the songwriting itself, too. Not just the subject matter, but also his actual output. I mean, the guy still tours. He still will pop into the Stone Pony and play a gig or two or whatever, still in his hometown, paying respect to where he came from and his roots. And the guy's still playing. The guy's still working.
He still drops in. Even a couple weeks ago, he dropped in on Gary Talents's band, and he performed with Gary Talents's band. It was pretty cool. You pointed out a lyric from The River that was actually a pretty big theme of the movie.
Yeah, it was, is a dream a lie if it don't come true, or is it something worse? I think that's, something a lot of people can relate to, and that's what the main character, Javed, really grappled with the whole time, fighting with his family and trying to uphold tradition, what his role should be in these tough times, like there was a bit of recession in the 80s and whatnot that really hit the British countryside hard, and this was something he grappled with because he wanted to be a writer, and writers don't necessarily get paid that much.
Unfortunately not. Yeah. Basically, the movie was pretty great. I enjoyed it. I think Adam enjoyed it too.
It was a heartfelt love letter from a fan, and as fans, we totally resonated with it. I mean, that's why we are fans of The Boss. I was singing along to most of the songs anyways, tapping my foot or whatever. Like, I kind of had to restrain myself from singing aloud.
I was definitely mouthing the words along as well.
It was like we were back in a concert.
It's impossible not to.
Well, for us Bruce fans.
Exactly.
What's your Billy? What's your top 5 Bruce songs?
God, Adam, that's so hard. I mean, Bruce has an epic catalog that's filled with countless hits, but there are some deep cuts that I enjoy that some people wouldn't know. So for my top 5, I'm gonna try to whittle it down to 5 that most people would know, but there might be one in there or two in there people may not have heard of. And spoiler alert, my number 1 is Thunder Road.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. Wasn't that your AOL password back in the day or something?
Shh.
Oh.
Don't worry, the Russians already got it.
Oh yeah.
They beat you to it. Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Ooh, good one.
The River. Born to Run.
That's damn it, you stole one of mine.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Does this bus stop at 82nd Street?
Ooh, deep cut.
Yes.
Deep cut. What is
Awesome.
it? Asbury Park?
Yeah, their
Oh my
first
God.
album. Greeting from Asbury Park. And I threw in an honorable mention, Lost in the Flood.
Definitely going.
Adam, hit us with your top 5.
Well, you kind of covered a couple of my. I mean, I can't deny that Thunder Road is an epic song. But I'll try and keep it a little fresh. One of my favorites. Speaking of Asbury Park, I could honestly say this is my favorite. Is Spirit in the Night. Speaking of Asbury Park, I just love the story behind it. I mean, it's one of the things that endears me to country music as well. But I love the stories. That's one reason why I love history.
Yeah, no, Spirit in the Night's great.
Yeah.
And especially, too, if you've had the pleasure or honor of seeing Bruce live, you know he has fun with Spirit of the Night for a good 10 minutes or so.
It's a killer riff. And, keeping with the old school, growing up, definitely a classic. If you've seen any Adam Sandler movies, that song is definitely featured in there at least a couple times. I'm pretty sure... what was it? I think it's Big Daddy. That's what he closed it out with.
Big Daddy, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's such a classic song. I mean, a lot of my stuff is kind of older, to be honest. I mean, he's got a like you said, an extensive catalog, but some of the oldies are the favorites. I'd go with Atlantic City.
I love
That's
that song.
definitely a classic. I mean, you got his acoustic version during like the 90s MTV Unplugged thing. Plus you got Hungry Heart, Glory Days. I mean, all these are just filled with nostalgia. I
mean, sometimes too the softer songs are what I'm in the mood for as well. Like one of my favorite soft songs by Bruce is Mansion on the Hill.
That's a good one. That's definitely a good one. I mean,
a lot of you probably have never heard it, but dig it up.
I mean, you threw in a couple honorable mentions. I mean, I cannot go without saying and mentioning Redheaded Woman. It's one of the most hilarious, dirtiest songs I've ever heard, and it's on that same MTV Unplugged album.
Read the lyrics, people.
It's hilarious.
Read the lyrics.
But I mean, I've loved everything from Rosalita to Tunnel of Love. The Ghost of Tom Joad. I mean, we saw him in concert with Tom Morello.
Oh,
it was
amazing.
One of the greatest performances I've ever seen. We saw Paul McCartney live, and that was legendary. Yeah. And still, like, watching Tom Morello and Bruce Springsteen jam out was so kick-ass.
Tom Morello is amazing.
I mean, and even like some of the newer stuff that he's done that probably no one has ever heard, like that Pete Seeger session, American Land Song, or even Radio Nowhere, The Wrestler from the that won an Oscar or something like that. Like, I can't
from the movie.
There's so many good songs that I enjoy. Like, it was hard to just narrow it down to 5.
And we'd be remiss in not mentioning one of the biggest members of the E Street Band.
The biggest man you ever seen!
Clarence. Do I have to say his name?
Clarence, rest in peace, man.
Oh, such an inspiration to us.
That guy, that man's saxophone was legend. Wait for it. Dairy. Like, there's like, as a fan of music in any rate, like, there's one other saxophonist that like stuck out to me in the 90s and whatnot, and like most people have heard Lenny Pickett in the Saturday Night Live Band. He's got that squealing thing, but no one could blow on that sax and make it just yell with that rasp and that, like, those lungs powered so much behind the E Street Band. It's sorely missed.
It is. He was Bruce's right hand man, and they had such great chemistry up on stage. It was so fun to watch them perform. It's now time to grade the film. Adam, what would you fling it?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I give it a solid B+, man. I mean, Gurinder Chadha, she is the director of Bend It Like Beckham, and there's a lot of the same notes from that movie and whatnot. So it is somewhat nostalgic even for like the early 2000s. So it kind of follows the same path a little bit too. But,
it was similar. That was a great movie too.
Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's still a damn good movie.
Yeah. I gave it an A-, slightly higher, because, I, like you, I immensely enjoyed the film, and I really couldn't think of much wrong with it. It was just a lot of fun. I had a big grin on my face from start to finish, and it was like candy to me. Adam and I did see it in a Dolby theater, so Bruce's music was cranked up to 11, and it was awesome. The seats were shaking as his lyrics were blasting through the speakers, and it was just a great experience.
Well, it's not like we're biased or anything as super fans either, but the one thing that really touched me, I guess, is that it was very much like how I discovered Bruce's music and grew up with it and learned from it.
All right, well, we enjoyed the movie, and now to talk about the upcoming movies to be released on Friday, August 23rd. Up first is Overcomer, and it's a 2019 American Christian drama film directed by Alex Kendrick and written by him and Stephen Kendrick. It is the Kendrick brothers' sixth film and their second through their subsidiary, the Kendrick Brothers Productions. It is scheduled for release on August 23rd, of course. John Harrison, played by Alex Kendrick, is a high school basketball coach whose state championship dreams vanish when he receives some unexpected news that forces him to take a job as a cross-country coach. After being inspired by a friend's prayers, he comes to help one of the least likely athletes win the biggest race of the year. I really have no interest in seeing it. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, can't say that I'm going to be going to watch that one.
The next movie opening up on the 23rd is Angel Has Fallen, and it continues the saga of Gerard Butler's Mike Banning as a Secret Service agent for Morgan Freeman's President Alan Trumbull. After the events in the previous installment, London Has Fallen, Agent Banning finds himself framed for an assassination attempt on President Trumbull. Pursued by his own agency and the FBI, Banning turns to unlikely allies in a race against time to clear his name and uncover the real terrorist threat. I'm actually looking forward to that. Be sure to watch out for my bonus episode coming up, dealing with Good Boys. Tune in this Friday, the 23rd, when that episode will be released. That will do it for this episode of the Movie Grader and Friends podcast. Please join me again next week for Angel Has Fallen. Find me on Instagram and Twitter at The Movie Grader, and please visit my website, www.themoviegrader.com. On iTunes, review and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Also, please tell your friends about the podcast. Thanks for the support. The Movie Grader and Friends podcast is available on all major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and basically anywhere you can get your podcasts from. This has been the Movie Grader and Friends podcast. Thank you for your time. Feel free to email me at themoviegrader@gmail.com with any comments or suggestions, and I'll see you next week.
His name is Bill.